What's going on, Sens fans? Welcome back to another post-game coverage with Jack and myself. And tonight was a game that I missed half of it, so I'm not going to be able to talk a whole bunch about what happened. I was doing an interview with Bobby Ryan, and So Jack, how'd the game go?
It was a really slow start. Maybe not even a slow start. Just a soft goal for Forsberg, and then a really nice power play goal by the Jets. But then after that, it was just all Sens. They were, shutting them down to an extent, kind of the same as the Oilers game, the last one that they played. But they had about 4 or 5 breakaways this whole game. So,
Wow.
2 of the goals against Hellebuck were really soft, but he stopped quite a few breakaways. So he wasn't the reason that the Sens won, I guess. But yeah, it was a fun game to watch, I gotta say. And after the whole last 30 hours ish, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough that the interview didn't start until about 10 minutes left in the second. So I got to see the first 2 goals, and then Brady Tkachuk's second goal. So I only missed Dadanov, but yeah, like you said, the first period started off pretty slow, and both goalies looked pretty shaky. I mean, Connor Brown's goal, that was...
Yeah, he's got to have that one for sure.
Hellebuck's got to have that 100%.
But hey, when you're hot, you're hot, right? 8 goals in 8 games for Connor Brown. That's I was looking at, the NHL tweeted something out that since 1991, like all the players who have had a longer streak, they're all Hall of Famers. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to see we're witnessing history right now, and it's pretty weird that it's Connor Brown.
I know. Like, of all people on the team, like Drake Batherson hit 6. Everybody was like, go Batherson, woo. Mm-hmm. But nobody really expected him to go much further, but let alone Connor Brown. Like, what?
No, I know. It's pretty crazy. It's because he goes to the right areas, right? He puts himself in the right situations. He's a hard worker. Like, what you're getting from him every night. And at the beginning of the year, he was pretty snake bitten, but he's just finding a way. And that goal tonight is a perfect example. So he's got a chance to stretch it to 9 games, which is insane.
And as mentioned here, longest goal scoring streak since Mike Green in 08-09, which blows my mind because, as many of you know, Mike Green was a defenseman. So
yeah,
it's crazy that nobody's hit that since then. But that it's Connor Brown to hit that just none of that makes sense.
I think Mike Green had 30 goals that one year, which is
he did.
Unheard of, right? I think Carlson had 15 one year. That was the most he ever had. It's pretty crazy thinking of defensemen putting it in like that. But yeah, I mean, speaking of defensemen, Victor Mete looked good. I thought not terrible. Like he only played just under 10 minutes.
Yep.
So not a ton. Obviously, pretty wild day for him. But man, Eric Brandstrom stole the show for me. Just
really
15 minutes of ice. He's a +3.
Wow.
He was on his game. He had an extra jump, and he looked pretty good with Zub. So Zub was also a +3. So it's the Zub factor.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Riley do excellent with Zub, and I think even right now, Brandstrom is a better defenseman than Riley, especially an offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
So that pairing, I can 100% see it working out. I wish I could have got to see more of it tonight. There was only about 7 minutes of ice time by the time I stopped watching, but yeah.
Perfect example was on Tkachuk's goal, or his second one. He gets back, makes a great play with his stick on a rush chance, and then hits it up to Tkachuk, and he gets the breakaway. And he also made a really nice play on Brown's goal. He pinched down the wall. He didn't get the assist, but he looked great. So good for him for taking advantage of the opportunity. And, like we said, they have to make the coaches play them. It's up to them to earn the ice time, and he's doing that right now.
Yeah, and it's crazy that we have the double standard that everybody's saying that about Logan Brown all year, but everybody's begging. Well, I guess Brandstrom has proved he's worth that spot more than Logan Brown has proved he's worth.
Yeah.
But everybody's still just saying throw him in there, but he's got to work for it. So it's good to see that all that work has paid off. So
absolutely, yeah, and he had a couple hits as well, and he looked didn't look like he was out of place in the top 4 whatsoever.
Yeah. That's good. That's good to hear. And how did Mete do? I didn't get to see much of him either, and doesn't look like many people did with only 9.5 minutes. But
yeah, he was okay. I mean, he didn't make any mistakes, any crazy mistakes, but he kind of looks a lot like Brandstrom. I noticed. They skate the same way. They're both around the same size. He's just not as fast. Brandstrom had an extra step, and he looked a little bit more solid. Yeah, tough to evaluate, I think, but definitely good in that spot.
Yeah, and fair enough. Like it's hard to be bad in a role that you're playing 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But we've seen it plenty of times this season. So good
Definitely,
on Mete for in less than 4 hours getting a call and then on the ice. Like
yeah,
that's ridiculous.
it's a whirlwind day. So you'll see, I guess, hopefully when he starts to get into a groove, he'll figure out how to, make more of an impact, I think. But he didn't really need to tonight. He was solid. And I mean, Josh Brown too. He played close to 13 minutes. A lot of penalty killing tonight. But he wasn't terrible either. I thought it was one of his better games of the year, to be honest. Had a nice fight with Logan Stanley, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and we get the king of bad takes here, with the someone help me, because I noticed everyone's tagging him on Twitter after Tkachuk potted 2 there and was, had quite the game. So a little tough to back up his takes on tonight, but yeah, Tkachuk just that breakaway goal. We've seen him on breakaways before, and he's hit the post, like that left post, quite often.
Yeah,
I feel like, and he's got a sneaky release on breakaways to catch the goalies like that and hit the post. But he finally buried one over Hellebuck, and that was a great play. I think it was their 5th breakaway. Like Batherson had one, Dadonov had one, Formanson had one, and for the life of me, I don't understand how that wasn't a penalty shot.
And Brown had one in the first as well.
Yeah, and Brown had one in the first. Brown had one in the second too. Like they had tons, and a lot of them came on a penalty kill. But yeah, Formanson with 16 minutes of ice time tonight, a lot of penalty killing time, but he looks so good. Just the speed he brings, and he's really reliable defensively. He's good with his stick. So I'm really happy with Formanson.
Yeah, and he's, like we've been saying for the past few games, he's just kind of coming in and taking Austin Watson's role with X amount more skill. Like, we don't even know how much skill he has. I mean, tonight's the first night he's seen over, 12 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good to see that he's getting the opportunity again. I didn't get to watch the game, so I can't say, oh, yeah, he had a great game, blah, blah, blah. But
it was probably one of his best, probably his best game since being called up, I'd say. He didn't score or anything, but he was just all over the place. And he was causing a lot of problems for the defense up top. The Jets' weakest part is probably their D. And he was causing a lot of problems for them at the blue line. Yeah,
and that's pretty much what you want. Like, you got such a young, speedy guy, and obviously, as many people know, he has a faster lap around the ice than Connor McDavid. Obviously, I don't think he's as explosive as Connor McDavid, but he's got the speed there, and use it.
Yeah, it's a noticeable speed, which is hard to do at the NHL for sure.
Yeah, so with the goals, I saw the first Tkachuk goal, which was just a bounce in off of his leg from Norris, but fantastic. He's exactly where he's supposed to be. Norris does exactly what he's supposed to do.
They changed the power play finally.
Yep.
I think I mentioned it last game when it was frustrating. They finally put Norris on that right side, moved Batherson to the middle, and then Stützle back on the left side there. And Norris is really good at getting it to the net from that spot, whether it's him shooting or throwing it to Tkachuk down there. And Batherson even went down to join, and like immediate results, right? And that's what you want for your power play. Your power play has to produce. This, like the Jets tonight, they could have taken over this game and they didn't, and it was the power play that failed them, right? So really, really happy that they actually changed something. Even the entries, they didn't do the drop pass. I noticed later in the game too. So that's really encouraging that they're changing. It's just a little too late, I guess. But
yeah, and worth noting, Pinto and Bernard Docker are joining Wednesday. That's the expectation now, I think. And Pinto could be a good asset on that second power play. He's known as a defensive guy, but he's got great offensive instincts, and I think he can come in and help them out. And even Bernard Docker, I can't see him beating out Brandstrom, but the opportunity's there, I think. So
yeah, I mean, I think the thinking is that they should take Amadio and Josh Brown spots. Those are the two that would come out. Amadio was pretty quiet tonight. He didn't do much. He had a penalty that was kind of a lazy penalty, but he just literally played 10 minutes flat, no power play or penalty kill time. So he was pretty flat, and Stützle was paired with Dzingel and Amadio, which was a interesting line because they had Batherson with Norris and Kachuk, which worked pretty well, I think. But I'm not sure if that line combo is good, and I'm not sure that if Pinto is playing, he's going to be with those guys, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, White, Dadonov, and Paul look fantastic all game. So yeah, and this is a good comment actually. Bishop didn't get to play tonight. That's a good point. I guess with White coming back in, Bishop was the odd man out. So, if Pinto's not in next, I would assume that Bishop takes Amadio's spot.
Yeah, and it was good because Amadio came in and had a great start. He really struggled on the faceoff tonight, 1 for 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amadio, great role player. It'll just kind of injury, I think, would be a good spot for him. So
they all struggled on faceoffs. Wow. Yeah. Except for Connor Brown, downtown Connor Brown, 3-0.
Yep.
Does everything. What doesn't he do? So that's good. Yeah, they got dominated in the circle. It's a theme with the Jets.
Really struggled.
The Jets are a really good face-off team, it seems like.
Yeah, because they dominated us last game. I don't think we had anybody over 40% other than somebody that was at 50%.
Yeah.
It's face-off is a huge problem with this team, and it's obvious that Shaden Pinto is going to come in and hopefully step into a role that he can take, especially defensive zone face-offs. I don't know how many goals we've had this year off of defensive zone face-off losses.
Yeah.
Too many to count.
I think a role that Pinto should be targeting is Tierney. I think Tierney would be the spot that he can take over. You got that penalty killing. He was better tonight than most. He had a nice assist on Brown's eighth goal in 8 games, but just a couple times where you can tell he's doesn't have much confidence. In the second period, he had a couple chances, but I mean, that's probably more of a long-term thing and a next season thing. But right now, I mean, I'm really excited to see Pinto. Every time a prospect comes up, I'm excited to see, because I've watched obviously them at North Dakota and they're the top guys, so they look great. But it'll be interesting to see how it translates to the NHL, and I'm hoping that it's pretty seamless. That's the plan.
Yeah. It'll be, and especially with Bernard Docker, I think he played such a great game, and I've seen a couple of people on Twitter questioning his NHL readiness, which I don't at all personally, but sure, there should be concerns out there. He's obviously not going to come in and be a first unit right-hand defenseman on any team, but he's going to come in and get the opportunity to show that he is. So that's kind of wait and see. It's hard when we know that they're so good. Watching them in North Dakota, but you got to be patient with them.
I've got complete trust in this process, and today is more of an example of that. The fact that they traded Mike Riley, he was a great defenseman this year. He did really well. He wasn't the problem whatsoever. And after the first quarter of the season, let's say, he was pretty rough in that first stretch. But once he was Zub, he was great. But the fact that Dorion elected to trade him, and not that a 3rd round pick is nothing, but it's not world beating. Like you could shrug that off and say, hey, I'll just wait and see if we can sign this guy. But the fact that they were willing to move him so that Brandstrom can get more time, Dorion exclusively said that it's for a young guy to get more time, and namely Eric Brandstrom, right?
Yeah.
And I've been saying this all year. If people were complaining about Brandstrom getting in and stuff, obviously you don't want Coburn playing over him, and I don't know who else was in that lefty spot. I can't even remember right now, but I think it was just Coburn rotating for him. But if Mike Riley hadn't been playing so well, Brandstrom would have had every opportunity to do it, right? Riley just played really well, which wasn't necessarily expected. So the fact that they were willing to move him out is really encouraging to me.
Yeah, and it's rare usually, but that's not to say that he can't come back. If Mete doesn't work out, he can't come back on a cheap deal for a third pairing. Yeah, no,
for sure.
And that's kind of the thing with everybody was talking about with Dzingel, moving him at the deadline and re-signing him. And that's another thing worth mentioning. I don't want to give too much away, but talking to Bobby Ryan, he was saying that, it's tough to make those decisions. And trade deadline comes, you're always worried. There was a piece wrote about Dzingel today on TSN, I think, about how he kind of had the jitters all day. So, it's... You never know what's going to happen deadline day. So,
yeah, it's not. I mean, Dzingel had the least amount of ice time out of forwards. He did like a couple seconds less than Amadio, but it's not. It's easy to forget the human side, right? And I mean, good Branson just had a kid, and he's from here, and now he's got to go to Nashville, right? That can't be easy, and it's gonna suck probably, but it's part of the, it's the cliche saying, it's part of the business. But
yeah, and you see Dorion mentioning that it was one of the hardest calls to make, and
yeah,
I don't understand why you do it, because the 7th round pick isn't going to do much for you, and unless Erica Branson wanted to go, I just don't think I can justify why. Like, I think he'd be happier as a healthy scratch for the rest of the season, sitting at home with his newborn.
yeah.
It's a really, and timing wise, if he had a baby at the beginning of the season, I could understand. But like, this is a week ago max, so I don't know. I wonder about it.
You got to think futures too. Like, if you're Dorion, you want him to be able to prove that he's worth a contract for someone, right? And I don't think in Ottawa, I don't know if anyone would sign him in free agency. Netting a 7th rounder 2 years in the future is as low as it gets, pretty much. But he wouldn't have been able to do that. Now, at least if he goes to Nashville, he can showcase himself a little bit and maybe secure a job next season, which is a big factor as well. But yeah, I do agree that the return, it's not so much about the return, it's about moving the prospect out. And I think moving him specifically just says that they're ready to give JBD a solid look. And they skated today, so maybe they saw him and they're like, this kid can step in right away. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so hard with nobody in the rink because we only get to see what they show us. Like, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's a tough year for everybody, and especially with Gabranson. Now he has to go quarantine, or no quarantine in the States, but
no.
He just he's got to quarantine when he comes back to see his baby, and
just
all that. It's really tough. So it's kind of a lose-lose, I guess, or a win-win, depending on how you look at it. So
I mean, if Nashville can go on a run, that's good for him and stuff. And I don't know what kind of role he's going to play there, but that's tough. But I mean, Coburn too, same thing. Just get a 7th rounder back for him. It's the same kind of I guess vibe for Coburn as it is for Goodbranson, because he's not going to be an impact guy for the Islanders, I don't think. But Dorion had nothing but good things to say about him, but that's what I think people wanted to see at the beginning of the year, just let the kids play. And I understand that, right? But again, I think our forward group, the kids have taken over, and the defense is going to start too. And I think next season is going to be a very fun one, I think, if they can get some good goaltending.
Yeah, and like you said tonight, we had the better goalie tonight, and look how the game ended up. So
yeah, exactly.
Kind of what you always say. So figured I'd throw that in there too.
You just need the better goal. Yeah, 833 save percentage for Hellebuck. That's brutal.
Yeah.
I will say 923 there for Forsberg. That's good, but I will say that he stopped a lot of quality chances, just let in 2 soft ones for Hellebuck, that is. It was a fun game to watch though. Definitely leaving me optimistic about the future.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, all the young guys are coming up to play now, and I think this was the plan the whole time. Obviously, you expected a little more out of Stepan while he was here. You expected a little more out of just all these guys you brought in. Nobody expected to be in this position, but it worked out fairly well, especially for Dorion, because now he can get rid of those pieces without losing much on the team.
Yep.
Obviously, Stepan's not going anywhere. He's injured. But yeah, it's good to see that they're getting the chance now. The season's pretty well over for Ottawa. They just have to play the rest of their games, and it's really promising, I think, because
that's a good word. Yeah,
this forces DJ's hand to play the kids, because now there's no veterans left.
That's a big part of it. And I mean, after the second Winnipeg goal, they zoned in on DJ, and you could kind of tell he was like, "Holy shit!" Like, this, pardon my language, but like, oh, this sucks. And to his credit, that is a tough thing to kind of come over, right? You got to completely. I shouldn't even say completely new. You have one new defenseman, but you lost 2 that you knew really well that were pretty much in your lineup every night. So,
and then well, 3 if you count Coburn coming in every once in a while. So
Yeah. So big pieces, right? And it's a tough day for everyone involved. You develop relationships over the course of the year, and these guys are always together, so it can be hard. But yeah, forcing his hand a little bit, and then I was pretty surprised. Not surprised when they picked up Mete, but I was like, okay, like that's a smart move that everyone could see would be a good idea.
So surprised.
Right. Yeah, I was surprised that I guess the Sens did it, because how many times have we seen a waiver and been like, oh, they should get him, but nothing ends up happening.
Yeah, and especially after seeing Riley go and then Coburn and Gabranson, like it was a given that, or well, Gabranson was after the fact, but after seeing Coburn and Riley go, you knew we were bringing in a lefty, and I guess Pierre Dorian was just praying that Buffalo didn't pick up Mete.
I think Mete is the perfect like stopgap for when Sanderson comes, because Dorian talked about him today too. Sanderson, he mentioned him as well, as when they have to move people out, they're like, Sanderson's coming. So, yeah, that's it's a fun game to watch, and not even like it doesn't matter in terms of the playoff run and stuff, but like this they get to play spoiler for the rest of the season, which is fun, especially against a bunch of rivals, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to.
A full sicko mode, and like
honestly, yeah,
it just, there's nothing stopping us now. Like we don't have to worry about, oh well, we actually have to win this game. We can't just So yeah, there's a lot of pressure off this team, which I think will really help the kids, because nobody's worried about making the playoffs. We have to win this game anymore, and so and already ruined Calgary's season, made them sours. I mean,
exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
And go ahead.
This is only the second win against the Jets. So if the Jets won here, like there's actually a lot of like pride for the Sens to play with, right? They go 0-9 against Edmonton, which sucks, but then they win their second here in 6 games, I think, against the Jets, maybe less. But the Jets had their number all year, and you even go to Vancouver, who's only 1 spot ahead of them in the standings, and they haven't beaten Vancouver once this year.
Yeah,
a couple close overtime games, but still, those are games. They've got 4 left against the Canucks. Those are games they're going to want to win. So, and this is a good point. Like it'll be a good test to see how this team is coming together a little bit. I liken the Sens to the Canucks in terms of where their rebuild's at. The Canucks, they got Pettersson and Hughes, and then they were a bit better, and then they made the playoffs, right? That should be the goal. This is the season after getting Hughes, let's say.
Yeah.
Then Hughes steps in, and then they make the playoffs. That should be the goal, as Sanderson would be the Hughes, right? And they've got the good, like the veterans, their veterans now are Connor Brown, Nick Paul. It sounds weird to say Nick Paul is, but those are their depth guys who are going to support the young guys as they get more and more confident. Yeah,
and that's the thing. There's been a lot of talk about like, oh, what's the core of this team? And this team has a very, very strange core, because you got Batherson, you got Norris, you got Tkachuk, you got Paul, you got Brown, Stützle. You just got that's 6 forwards that you don't want to move for the next 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. You usually see, and I saw a really good comparison, that we're turning into St. Louis that won the Cup. We don't really have that elite star. Like, we will have our own Ryan O'Reilly and Alex Pietrangelo, but they're not like top 5 in the league. Nobody on their team is. So
this isn't the NBA. Like, you don't need a superstar to win a title, right? And look at all the last winners. I mean, Tampa is probably the only exception, but they're just built like crazy.
Even Washington, they had a good year from John Carlson and Alex Ovechkin, but Ovechkin I can't really make an argument for. He's by far a superstar. Yeah. But the rest of that team is pretty, I don't want to say mediocre at all, but not elite, I guess. Like Nick Backstrom, good center. I wouldn't say he's like a top 5 or top 10 center. Yeah. Like they just have really good steady lines.
I shouldn't even say that it's like superstars don't win cups. Like they do, but it's not the be all and end all. Like if it's there's a lot of parity in the league, so building a team like this is good, and especially if you're going to keep your core intact for a good amount of time, right? And they are on the right track. That's the it's like you said, it's promising. So I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to watching this team next season and even towards the end of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, do you want to do the Jack and Jacob 3 stars tonight?
Yeah, sure.
I guess I can't really pitch in, so
Yeah, no worries. I like to think of them like in the moment because it's better, I think. I'm gonna give honorable mention to Forsberg because he did make some really good saves. And the penalty kill, I didn't even talk about that. The penalty kill looked really good. The first Jets power play, I was like, wow, this power play is just elite. Even without Blake Wheeler, they were zipping it around. But then they went back in the intermission and they figured it out and they killed, I think, 4 penalties in a row. And probably had better chances than the Jets on those penalties. So really great job from the penalty kill. Okay, 3rd star, I'm going to go Brady Tkachuk, actually. He was himself, so that's why it's not like a 1st or 2nd star. He, 6 hits, 5 shots, 2 goals. It's a fantasy darling right there.
Take my money.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
And a funny thing too, I tweeted out like, oh, Dadonov, Paul, and White are going to score tonight, and then Dadonov got that goal. So I said like I'm a prophet again, and then someone, I forget who, but someone replied and said, I think it might have been Sens updates. He said, don't announce a Tkachuk extension or something. So that's Dorian's next goal here after I guess the draft too. But this is that's the next big thing in the rebuild. That'll if Tkachuk can ink for a long time, that'll solidify this rebuild. 3rd star or 2nd star, sorry, I'll go Formanton. Just he was all over it, and I keep saying this, but just he's got that long stick, and he's really effective because his feet are quick to match it. And he's giving defensemen fits, and like you can tell like when Tkachuk gets going on the forecheck, like defensemen start panicking a little bit because they know they're going to get hit. It's the same with Formanton, but they're just worried they're going to get beat to the puck. So he's going to create that sense around the league that he's dangerous with his speed. And then 1st star, I got to go Brandstrom. Just he looked unbelievable, I thought, and then the perfect game. I mean, just 15 minutes, but the perfect game for him to have in this situation, where he's basically pretty much being handed a top 4 role now. Like it's his to lose, and he was unbelievable in it. So those are my 3 stars. Yeah,
fair enough. I can't argue with any of them. So who struggled tonight?
I mean, so the thing with DJ, he played the hell out of Shabbat and Zaitsev. Like Shabbat with 29 minutes and Zaitsev with 28. A lot of penalty kill, obviously, and he was pretty good on that. But I'm going to say Zaitsev just needs to be better. He was a little shaky in the first period. They let in a pretty bad goal. Shabbat and Zaitsev did. So those will be my 2. Or I guess my 1, Zaitsev.
Fair enough. I guess I don't really have anything else to add for tonight, do you?
No, I got nothing.
Awesome. So this is live on YouTube. So if you're watching on Twitter and you want to watch tomorrow, you'll be able to see it as well. Thanks everybody for watching. It's been a lot of fun doing this tonight, and make sure you check out our post game on Wednesday, where we hopefully see Jacob Bernard Docker and Shane Pinto. So take care.